Montessori school, and I never even knew what Montessori, how progressive was that? What's that like? And so we were really close back then. I remember filming the pilot, and one of the most vivid memories is we were near Disneyland. I remember I kept wanting to go to Disneyland, and there was a horrific smell, a sulfur smell, near where we were shooting and near this motel that we were staying at, which was, a dive motel. And here my mother's coming from a lovely house in the suburbs of Chicago, having to, hang out at this motel in Norwalk. I don't know if we shot the pilot in Norwalk.
We did.
We did. And just a sulfur smell. There was some kind of soap factory or something around there that smelled horrific. But I remember the song that Claudette sang, and I just remember being so excited.
Do you want to sing the song?
I don't want to sing it right now.
You want to say "People Please"?
People Please. Well, that was a big part of my audition, the People Please. I had to, I remember Kim Friedman kept telling me to shoot out my chin when I was talking, just keep shooting. And people please, it behooves me. And they loved me to say it behooves me. That was a big part of Muffy Tepperman's character, trait. And so, I remember it was just so exciting filming that pilot. I always had a lot of energy, and I always wanted to, I remember I had a nickname growing up, Paula Perfect, because my brothers would fight, and I would say to my parents, I had nothing to do with that. And my mother would say, yes, Paula Perfect, we know you're perfect. And, but I like to have a little more fun than Muffy. I'm not nearly as organized as Muffy was, or, ready to rally the troops. But I was, if the troops were being rallied, I was one to sing and dance and, be a part of it. I was always the spirit, person for our school, and I was a cheerleader in 8th grade. So yeah, I think part of Muffy lived inside of me back then. Now I'm an old married woman. There's not much left. But back then there was. And that always stuck with me, the fact that she was having fundraisers for a Guatemalan child, and the things that she was fundraising for were the latest swimwear and cable television. Things that a poor little Guatemalan girl desperately does not need were what Muffy was raising money for, and always concocting these crazy schemes to help her Guatemalan child. I think it is amazing. I think it was ahead of its time. I think CBS just didn't know what to do with us. I think it was a bunch of kind of young, wild writers that didn't fit the mold of what Hollywood was. They came from New York, they came from improv, they came from sketch comedy, and here they were going to be on prime time. They were going to write for teenagers. Was it appropriate? Wasn't it appropriate? And I think the network just didn't know what to do. And I think, I'd like to think that if it had been today, we would have gotten a much longer run. But it's something to be proud of, and something that gave me a life. It gave me my life, my professional life. It brought me out here where I met my, husband, and so I always think fondly of Square Pegs, and am amazed by how many people remember it. I remember my little brother was 5 years younger than I, and he came out for the summertime, and so everyone in the office had him working. He would deliver messages for, $1 here, $1 there, and I just remember him coming with the ratings. And here he was, 9, telling me about our ratings, because he had heard in the office someone talking about the ratings, and the fact that here's this little pisher, running around talking about ratings. But it was all that stuff that was not in my vernacular, that I now, having done television for years and having realized how difficult it is to get something on the air, let alone sustain it and keep it there, is huge. I think a lot of times networks are just so crazed if it's not an immediate hit, and they just don't give it the time that you need to find that audience. But we did. We had millions of people watching. Well, I'm always amazed when people say, Muffy, and I'm like, oh my God, that was 25 years ago. I cannot believe that's, and I've done a few things since, so I'm kind of like, wow. But But yeah, people are always so kind. I think it made a lot of people what they were thinking in their heads and feeling in their hearts. If you didn't fit in, if you weren't quite the popular, hip, cool person, Square Pegs made it hip and cool to be smart, to be funny, to be different. Because the four main characters were smart, funny, and different. And so I think a lot of the kids who watched it, a lot of the teenagers went, you know what, they're cool. They may not be, it made the in crowd look so, you know, pathetic and silly, and the nerdy crowd was just this smart, irreverent, funny, interesting group of people, the people you wanted to hang out with. When I heard that the show was canceled, I was devastated. I mean, I remember it was my senior year of high school, and I did not want to fill out my college applications. And my mother was desperately trying to get me to fill out my college applications. And I'm like, Mom, I don't think you realize I'm on a major television show. She's like, yeah, fill out your college applications. And Marge, who was the set teacher, was making me fill out my college applications. And I just thought this was going to go on forever. It was so much fun and so interesting and so cool. And I thought it would go on forever. And I remember just crying and crying when I heard that we didn't get picked up. I just could not believe it. And it was just it was such a coming of age for me. And then it was just like, cut short so quickly. But thank God I filled out the college applications, because I went to NYU and I, you know, studied for another year. But I was kept on by Embassy Television to work on, they had given me a contract to kind of work on Facts of Life and Different Strokes, all the shows that they had at the time. I worked on a lot of those shows during my freshman year of college. So that's really, you know, they were very kind to me. But then I needed the money. I was, either you were going to study to learn to be an actor, or you were going to be an actor, and here I was getting opportunities to be an actor. And so it was a no-brainer. And then I came back out here when I was 18. It was just such a lovely sense of family. No matter what was going on in your outside life, when you came to set, it all went away. No matter who's had the crazy parents, or who, you know, had the crazy siblings, or what was going on, when you got to set, it was just about creating. And it was just about having a good time. And I remember Tracy Nelson taking me, she had this Honda, I believe it was a Honda, and she could drive. I thought that, you know, she was so cool. And I remember she took me down Coldwater Canyon in her Honda, and I was so nauseous from the Coldwater Canyon, this very spirally, you know, road here in California. And I just thought, God, if I could just be her, if I could just get a little bit of that. And, you know, and Sarah's beautiful voice. I remember Sarah would just sing, and out came this extraordinary voice. And it's so interesting to me, her success, which has been so extraordinary and lovely, is not so much based on her voice, which was so beautiful. I mean, she was Annie on Broadway. And I remember she sang in one of the episodes, Cafeteria Line, and I remember I went with her when she went to record the song. And I remember being brought to tears because it was so beautiful. And I couldn't believe such a beautiful voice was coming out of this little skinny, tiny person, was this big, beautiful voice. And so it was just a magical time that I will be eternally grateful for.